Ma'am, step away from the vehicle and get on the
You're being
ground.
belligerent. Do as you're told. Officer, I'm a federal prosecutor. You're making a serious
I don't
mistake.
care who you say you are. Get down now.
My hands are empty. I'm not a threat. And your camera is recording. Every second of this is being documented.
Hey lovelies, welcome back to Justice Cam Chronicles. Before we continue, hit like, subscribe for more true crime stories, and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. We read every one. Now, let's get into the story.
The metal circles close around her wrists with a sound so small, it almost feels unreal. A hollow click. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. The kind of sound that doesn't echo. The kind that settles. In the middle of a sunlit parking lot. Between parked SUVs and luxury sedans. With shopping bags still resting against the open trunk. With receipts still folded neatly inside one of them. With a key fob still warm in her palm. And with a police officer standing less than 3 feet away, staring at her hands as if he isn't quite sure how they got there. Because Officer David Hutchins still doesn't fully understand what he's just done. Not yet. Not emotionally. Not psychologically. Not legally. Not historically. Right now, all he knows is this. He has just handcuffed a woman in public. A woman who hasn't yelled. Hasn't resisted. Hasn't threatened. Hasn't run. A woman who has complied with every command. A woman who has done nothing visibly wrong. And yet, something inside him is screaming that this has gone too far. But it's too late. Because once handcuffs close, the situation stops being about judgment. It becomes about consequences. And consequences have momentum. They don't stop easily. They don't reverse themselves. They roll downhill. And everything downhill is about to get crushed. What Hutchins doesn't know, what he won't know for several more minutes, is that the woman standing in front of him has spent nearly 2 decades sitting on the other side of this exact power dynamic. She has presided over police misconduct trials. She has ruled on unlawful searches. She has stripped officers of qualified immunity. She has sentenced corrupt cops to federal prison. She has written opinions that law students still study. She has shaped Fourth Amendment precedent across 3 states. And now, she is in handcuffs, in a mall parking lot, for loading shopping bags into her own car. Her name is Judge Kesha Langford. And in less than an hour, this arrest will trigger a chain reaction that will end careers, force federal intervention, cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars, and permanently alter how an entire police department operates. But right now, none of that exists yet. Right now, there is only confusion. Only tension, only a growing crowd, only phones recording, only an officer whose authority feels suddenly fragile, and only a woman who understands, with terrifying clarity, that every second from this point forward is evidence. Earlier that afternoon, nothing about this day had felt important. It was a Saturday, the kind of Saturday that blends into memory. Clear coastal sky, soft ocean breeze drifting inland. Temperatures in the low 70s. The outdoor shopping complex in La Jolla was busy, but not chaotic. Families, tourists, retirees, college students, couples, people moving in loose patterns between storefronts, cafes, and shaded benches. Judge Kesha Langford arrived alone. No security, no entourage, no staff. She didn't announce herself. She didn't carry herself like someone important. She wore jeans. A blazer, comfortable flats, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. She looked like thousands of professional women shopping on a weekend, which was exactly what she was. At 52 years old, Kesha had learned something critical about power. Real power doesn't advertise itself. She had grown up watching her parents work 2 jobs, watched her mother study at night, watched her father drive buses and trucks, watched discipline, preparation, and restraint become survival tools. She carried those habits into law school, into clerkships, into federal court. By her early 30s, she was already recognized as unusually meticulous. By 40, she was considered formidable. By 50, she was widely respected. But she never stopped being practical. She still ran her own errands, still shopped for her own groceries, still compared prices, still loaded her own trunk. That afternoon, she had visited 3 stores, bought home supplies, some clothing, a gift for a colleague, She had kept the receipts, folded them carefully, slid them into one of the shopping bags. Out of habit, out of instinct, out of decades of preparation, she walked toward her Mercedes, unlocked it, popped the trunk, and began loading the bags. One by one. No rush. No distraction. She was thinking about a motion she needed to rule on Monday. A suppression hearing involving a disputed traffic stop. Ironically, she was thinking about how fine the line can be between legal authority and abuse. How subtle the shift can feel. How easy it is for power to drift. She didn't know she was about to become a case study. Across the parking lot, Officer David Hutchkins had just finished another routine call. Noise complaint. Resolved. Paperwork pending. Nothing unusual. He had been on patrol for 8 years. Long enough to feel confident. Long enough to feel competent. Long enough to believe he understood the street. Hutchkins wasn't considered a problem officer. Not officially. No major complaints. No suspensions. No viral videos. He had decent evaluations. Solid arrest numbers. Supervisors described him as proactive, which, in policing culture, often means aggressive. Alert. Suspicious. Always looking. He prided himself on that. He believed crime was about patterns, and he believed he was good at spotting them. So when the radio crackled with a suspicious person call, he listened closely. Caller reports a female subject lingering near high-end vehicles. Possible casing. No name. No crime. No description of behavior. Just, black female. Medium build. Near black Mercedes. Hutchkins glanced toward the luxury row. Saw Kesha. Saw a black woman. Saw an expensive car. Saw shopping bags. And his brain did something psychologists call schema activation. It filled in blanks. It connected dots that weren't there. It converted uncertainty into narrative. In his mind, the story formed. Maybe she's waiting for someone. Maybe she's testing locks. Maybe she's stealing. Maybe she's distracting. Maybe she doesn't belong. He didn't consciously think those words. That's not how bias works. Bias whispers. It suggests. It nudges. It feels like instinct. And Hutchkins trusted his instincts. He parked, got out, adjusted his vest, rested his hand near his holster, and walked toward her. Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. The words were automatic. Command tone. Neutral face. Authority posture. Kesha heard him and turned slowly. No sudden movement. No startled reaction. Years of courtroom experience had trained her nervous system. She assessed immediately. Uniform. Badge. Weapon. Distance. Tone. Posture. This was not a casual interaction. This was a stop. Is there a problem, officer? Her voice was calm. Measured. Professional. Hutchkins noticed that. It didn't fit his internal script. I need you to step away and show me some ID. Now her legal mind engaged. Fourth Amendment. Terry stop. Reasonable suspicion. Articulable facts. She knew the checklist. And she knew it hadn't been met. Officer, I'm loading my own car. I have the key fob. What reasonable suspicion do you have that I'm committing a crime? That question landed like a pebble in his shoe. Annoying. Unexpected. Persistent. Most people didn't talk like that. They didn't cite standards. They didn't ask for justification. They complied. His status depended on that. I'm investigating a suspicious person report. What suspicious behavior was reported? He hesitated. He didn't have specifics. So he defaulted. I need to see your ID. This is the moment where many encounters turn, where cooperation either reinforces power or challenges it. Kesha chose challenge. Not disrespectfully, not aggressively, legally, because loading shopping bags into a car isn't suspicious. It's normal. Shoppers were starting to notice. Eyes lingered. Steps slowed. Phones appeared. One woman raised hers and began recording. Hutchkins felt it. The audience. The pressure. The implicit demand. Don't lose control. Ma'am, you need to cooperate. I am cooperating. I'm asking you to articulate the legal basis. Now his hand tightened on his belt. Now his voice sharpened. Step away from the vehicle and provide identification. She paused. Calculated. She knew escalation could be dangerous, especially for Black Americans, even for judges. So she chose strategic compliance. I'm going to comply under protest. This stop lacks reasonable suspicion. She narrated her movements, reached slowly, retrieved her wallet. Inside lay decades of achievement. But she handed over only the driver's license. At first, Hutchins examined it. Name, address, expiration. This your car? Yes. Prove it. She pressed the fob. Lights flashed. Locks clicked. Again. Satisfied. He wasn't. Because now he was wrong. Publicly. And psychologically, that is one of the hardest things for a person in authority to accept. So he reframed. You're being belligerent. I'm verifying. You need to wait. Am I free to go? No. For what crime? He walked away. Silence. She waited. Hands visible. Heart steady. Mind racing. He ran her info. Perfect record. Registered owner. No flags. No justification. And yet, he wasn't done. Officer David Hutchins sits in his patrol car, staring at the screen. Green text. White background. Database results. No warrants. No alerts. No flags. No criminal history. Valid license. Registered owner, Kesha Langford. Matches the Mercedes. Matches the address. Matches everything. From a purely procedural standpoint, the stop is over. It ended 3 minutes ago. From a constitutional standpoint, it never should have started. From a professional standpoint, the correct response now is simple. Return the license. Apologize. Document the call. Clear the scene. Drive away. But Hutchins doesn't do that. Because something else is happening inside his head. It's something officers are rarely trained to recognize. It's called commitment bias. Once a person commits publicly to a course of action, they experience intense psychological pressure to justify it, even when evidence proves it wrong. Backing down feels like humiliation. Doubling down feels like control. Hutchins has already approached her aggressively, questioned her legitimacy, demanded proof, raised his voice, drawn attention, admitted suspicion. Now, with bystanders filming, he feels trapped. If he walks back and says, "Sorry, my mistake," it won't feel like professionalism. It will feel like defeat. And defeat threatens identity. So instead of ending the encounter, he searches for a reason to continue it. He looks out his windshield, sees her standing there, hands visible, still calm, still composed, still watching him, not submissive, not afraid. That bothers him. Subconsciously, it feels like resistance, disrespect, challenge. And challenge to authority often gets reinterpreted as threat. He opens the car door, steps out, walks back toward her. His posture is tighter now, jaw set, voice clipped. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to search your vehicle." Kesha feels it immediately. The shift. This is escalation. This is phishing. On what basis? She asks. I have reasonable suspicion there may be stolen merchandise. She blinks once. Slowly. Not in surprise. In disbelief. Based on what specific facts? She gestures toward the bags. They're from stores in this mall. I have receipts. He doesn't answer. Because he can't. There are no facts. There is only a narrative he's trying to preserve. Your behavior is suspicious. How? You're being uncooperative. No, she replies evenly. I'm asserting my rights. That's protected. She cites case law. Arizona versus Johnson. Clear precedent. Refusal to consent does not create suspicion. Now his face flushes. This is no longer about procedure. This is about status. Are you a lawyer? He snaps. I'm a federal judge. The words don't land immediately. They hang. Suspended. Like a dropped glass that hasn't hit the floor yet. You're what? United States District Court. Southern District of California. She watches his pupils dilate. His breathing change. His posture soften. For the first time, uncertainty appears. This is cognitive dissonance. The person he framed as suspicious doesn't fit his mental model. She's articulate, legally fluent, composed, high status. This clashes violently with his earlier assumptions. So his brain scrambles. Denial is easier than restructuring. I need proof, he says. She hands over her credentials. Official, embossed, holographic. He studies them, hands trembling. This could be fake. But his voice lacks conviction. Call the courthouse, she replies. They'll verify. From behind them, the woman filming speaks. I've got everything on video. Now the pressure multiplies. Supervisor not here. Crowd forming. Credentials in hand. Camera rolling. This is the moment where a well-trained officer de-escalates. Where they call a superior. Where they acknowledge error. Where they protect themselves and the department. Hutchins does none of that. Because psychologically, he is cornered. He is experiencing what researchers call ego threat. His self-image as a competent officer is under attack. Admitting fault would mean admitting he profiled, that he misjudged, that he violated policy, that he broke the law. That is too much. So he chooses the only option that preserves his sense of authority in the moment. Force. Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. We're past that point, Kesha replies calmly. You've detained me unlawfully. You've extended the stop without cause. You've requested an illegal search. She pauses. Lets it sink in. What you should do now is return my ID, apologize, and call your supervisor. He stares at her. Silence stretches. Wind rustles shopping bags. A car door slams in the distance. Phones keep recording. Then she delivers the sentence that crystallizes everything. Every decision you make in the next 60 seconds will be evidence. This is not a threat. It's a fact. He knows it. She knows it. Everyone filming knows it. And yet, he makes the worst possible choice. Turn around. Hands behind your back. For what charge? Interfering with an investigation. There is no investigation, she replies. There is bias. The word hits him. Bias. It reframes everything. It threatens not just his job, but his moral identity. So he reacts. He pulls out the cuffs. Metal glints in sunlight. Click. They close. Spectators gasp. Someone whispers. That's a judge. She doesn't resist. Because resistance would give him justification. She gives him none. She walks. Dignified. Controlled. Silent. Inside, her mind is already shifting into litigation mode. Timeline. Witnesses. Footage. Claims. She is building a case. In real time. He places her in the back seat. Shuts the door. The sound echoes. And only then, sitting in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, radio in hand, does reality begin to crash in. He stares forward. Heart pounding. Sweat forming. He knows. He has crossed from mistake into misconduct. From misconduct into scandal. From scandal into career-ending catastrophe. But momentum has taken over. He starts the engine. Drives. 11 minutes. No words. No eye contact. No undo. At the station, officers barely look up. Routine. Another arrest. Another file. Another number. Until Carmen Rodriguez opens the wallet. Sees the credentials. Freezes. Her instincts tell her something is wrong. Very wrong. Where did you arrest her? She asks. Mall. For what? Interfering. With what investigation? He can't answer. She doesn't argue. She walks. Straight to command. Lieutenant Freeman looks at the ID. Feels his stomach drop. Because he understands instantly. This is not a complaint. This is not discipline. This is institutional crisis. He makes the call. 3 minutes. Returns older. Grayer. Judge Langford, you're being released. She requests documentation. All of it. No negotiation. He complies. Because he knows she's already ahead. She leaves. Uncuffed. Unbowed. Unbroken. And the department begins to panic. Because now the question isn't, did an officer make a mistake? It's, how did this happen at all? By the time Judge Kesha Langford's Uber pulls away from the police station, the damage is already irreversible. She sits in the back seat, hands folded in her lap. No phone. No music. No distractions. Just silence. The driver glances at her in the rearview mirror once, notices her posture, and decides not to speak. She stares out the window as San Diego traffic slides past. Storefronts. Bus stops. Palm trees. Ordinary life continuing. As if nothing monumental has just occurred. But inside her mind, the courtroom has already assembled. Evidence is lining up. Witnesses are taking their places. Arguments are forming. She is no longer a detainee. She is a plaintiff. And she is methodical. When she reaches her home at 6:47 p.m., She doesn't collapse onto the couch. She doesn't cry. She doesn't vent. She changes clothes, washes her hands, makes tea, then sits at her dining table and opens her laptop. Years of judicial discipline have trained her nervous system. Crisis means clarity. Emotion gets processed later. Strategy comes first. She begins reconstructing the timeline. Time of stop, duration, commands, statements, search request, arrest language, transport time, booking, release. Every detail matters. Memory fades. Documents don't. She makes 3 calls. The first is to the chief judge. Not dramatic, not accusatory, just factual. This is what happened. The line goes silent for several seconds. Then, are you serious? Yes. The second call is to her longtime friend, a civil rights litigator. He listens, doesn't interrupt. By the end, he says one sentence. This is a federal case. The third call is to the ACLU. They already know what this means. By Monday morning, it is moving through institutional arteries, judicial conferences, administrative channels, city legal offices, union leadership, internal affairs. Everyone understands the same thing. This is radioactive. Inside the San Diego Police Department, Sunday night is restless. Emails circulate. Supervisors request footage. Command staff ask questions that don't have good answers. What was the basis? Why wasn't a supervisor called? Why was there an arrest? Why wasn't it de-escalated? Why weren't credentials verified? Why did nobody intervene? Each why exposes another failure. By Monday, the chief of police personally calls Kesha. He apologizes. Carefully, legally, politely. She listens, thanks him, and informs him she will be filing suit. There is no anger in her voice, which makes it worse. On Wednesday, the lawsuit lands. 23 pages. Single-spaced, dense, precise, relentless. Every allegation is footnoted. Every claim is time-stamped. Every constitutional violation is supported by precedent. 4th Amendment, 14th Amendment, false arrest, unlawful detention, equal protection, racial profiling, municipal liability, failure to train, failure to supervise, deliberate indifference. Officer Hutchkins is named personally. So is the city. The city attorney's office receives it and immediately requests the footage. Parking lot cameras, bodycam, dashcam, booking cameras, radio logs, dispatch recordings. They watch. Once, twice, 3 times. In silence. No one speaks during the third viewing. Because by then, it's undeniable. The stop is unjustified. The detention is unlawful. The search request is illegal. The arrest is retaliatory. The credentials are ignored. The escalation is documented. Every mistake is preserved in high definition. The city attorney finally breaks the silence. This is indefensible. They schedule an emergency meeting. Chief, city manager, risk management, outside counsel. The consensus forms quickly. Trial would be catastrophic. Discovery would be worse. Settlement is inevitable. But before negotiations even begin, the story leaks. It starts with a local reporter. Police scanner. Tip from a courthouse source. Federal judge arrested. That's enough. The headline writes itself. By afternoon, it's on every local station. By evening, national outlets pick it up. By morning, it's international. Judge arrested while shopping. Wrongful detention caught on video. Police handcuff federal judge. The woman's cell phone footage is uploaded. It spreads. Fast. Algorithms love conflict. Power imbalance. Moral outrage. Within 24 hours, 3 million views. Within a week, 15 million. Comment sections explode. Thousands of stories. I had this happen. They did this to me. No one believed me. Legal analysts pause frame by frame, explaining. This is where the stop becomes illegal. This is where reasonable suspicion evaporates. This is where retaliation begins. Civil rights organizations cite it in newsletters. Universities use it in classes. Activists organize around it. The department's image collapses in real time. Meanwhile, Internal Affairs begins its investigation. They assign their most senior investigator. No shortcuts. No favors. Every second reviewed. Every officer interviewed. Every report examined. They interview Hutchins first. He is defensive, then uncertain, then quiet. They ask him to explain. What specific suspicious behavior did you observe? He hesitates. Her demeanor. What about it? She seemed guarded. Is that illegal? No. Did she attempt theft? No. Touch other vehicles? No. Flee? No. Then what justified the stop? Silence. They pull the mall security guard. He admits. She looked out of place. What does that mean? I don't know. Just the feeling. That feeling becomes the centerpiece. Bias. Unconscious. Normalized. Unexamined. They examine Hutchins' history. 3 years of stops. Searches. Arrests. Patterns emerge. Black motorists stopped 2.8 times more. Searched 3.4 times more. Arrested more. Contraband found less. The data tells the story he never saw, or didn't want to see. Internal Affairs finishes in 4 weeks. The report is devastating. Policy violations. Constitutional violations. Bias indicators. Supervisory failures. Training gaps. He is terminated. The letter lists everything. No ambiguity. No soft language. He tries to appeal. Union reviews footage. Withdraws support. You're done. But the fallout doesn't stop there. Because now the Department of Justice is watching. Civil Rights Division opens a probe. 8 months. 5 years of data. Thousands of files. Dozens of interviews. They release a 97-page report. Systemic disparities. Structural failures. Predictable outcomes. San Diego enters a consent decree. Federal monitoring. Mandatory reforms. Oversight. Audits. Bias training. Early warning systems. Civilian review. Everything. All triggered by one parking lot stop. And in the middle of it all, Kesha waits. She does interviews only when necessary. Never sensational. Never emotional. Always factual. She lets the documents speak. Negotiations last 9 months. The settlement is confidential, but leaks. $675,000. She donates every dollar. No hesitation. No publicity campaign. I don't need compensation, she says. I need protection for others. Officer Hutchins gives one interview. Claims he followed training. Claims she was uncooperative. The interviewer asks, what suspicious behavior did she show? He cannot answer. Silence. The same silence from the interrogation room. The same silence from Internal Affairs. The same silence from the footage. Because there never was any. When the Department of Justice releases its 97-page report, it does not read like an investigation. It reads like an autopsy. Every paragraph dissects a failure. Every chart exposes a pattern. Every conclusion traces misconduct not to one bad officer, but to a culture that allowed bad decisions to become routine. The report opens with language that is unusually direct. The investigation found reasonable cause to believe that the San Diego Police Department engaged in a pattern or practice of unconstitutional policing. That sentence alone triggers federal authority. Consent decrees are not suggestions. They are mandates. They mean the department has lost the privilege of self-policing. From that moment forward, outside monitors will examine everything. Stops, searches, use of force, complaints, discipline, training, promotions, data, budgets, command decisions. For 3 years, federal attorneys will sit inside the department, observe briefings, review reports, audit supervisors, interview officers. The culture of handle it internally is over. Inside headquarters, morale collapses, not because of accountability, but because exposure feels humiliating. Many officers feel unfairly judged. Others feel relieved. Finally, someone is saying out loud what they've known. That shortcuts were rewarded. That bias went unchallenged. That complaints were buried. That proactive policing often meant harassment. Mandatory training begins. Implicit bias seminars. Constitutional law refreshers. De-escalation workshops. Scenario simulations. Early warning systems flag officers with abnormal stop patterns. Supervisors are required to intervene. No more ignoring statistics. No more gut feeling. Every stop must now be justified on paper and in data. Body cameras become non-negotiable. Failure to activate equals discipline. Civilian review boards gain authority. Subpoena power. Budget access. Public reporting. Transparency replaces insulation. It is uncomfortable, necessary, expensive, but irreversible. While the institution struggles to reform itself, David Hutchins is unraveling. Termination hits differently than suspension. Suspension means return. Termination means exile. His badge is confiscated. His weapon is surrendered. His ID is voided. 8 years of identity disappear in a meeting that lasts 12 minutes. He empties his locker. Photos. Challenge coins. Old commendations. He avoids eye contact. Other officers don't know what to say. Some blame him. Some pity him. Some quietly resent that he got caught doing what others had done. But nobody defends him publicly. No department will hire him. His termination record is radioactive. Unlawful arrest. Bias. Misconduct. Private security companies reject him. Insurance liability. Background checks. He takes short-term work. Warehouse. Delivery. Night shifts. Nothing sticks. The narrative follows him. Google doesn't forget. He moves. Different city. Different state. Same reputation. He gives one interview years later. Tries to explain. Claims misunderstanding. Claims pressure. Claims training. The reporter asks again. What crime did she commit? He looks away. He has no answer. Because there never was one. Psychologists who study policing call this identity collapse. When a profession is not just a job, but a self-concept, losing it produces grief, denial, anger, depression, withdrawal. Hutchins cycles through all of it. Privately, without support, without reintegration. He becomes a footnote, a warning, a case study. Kesha Langford's life changes more subtly. She returns to the bench. Same chambers, same staff, same docket. But colleagues notice differences. She asks more questions, demands more specificity, allows fewer shortcuts. She scrutinizes police testimony carefully, not skeptically, precisely. When officers testify, she listens for assumptions, generalizations, vagueness. She recognizes them now, because she's lived them. In private conversations, she admits something. What happened to me happens every day. It just usually isn't filmed. She begins pushing for bodycam disclosure, for early evidence release, for public access. She advocates inside judicial conferences, quietly, relentlessly. She never frames it as revenge. She frames it as responsibility. Her clerks say working for her becomes more intense, more rigorous, more ethical. She wants future lawyers trained to notice power imbalance, to recognize coercion, to value constitutional restraint. The consent decree reshapes the department. Recruitment changes. Psychological screening improves. Implicit bias metrics become part of evaluation. Promotion criteria shift. Complaint histories matter. Community policing expands. Neighborhood liaisons. Restorative programs. Transparency dashboards. Public data portals. Citizens can now see stop rates by race, by neighborhood, by officer. Sunlight becomes accountability. Some officers leave. They resent oversight. Others stay. They adapt. They evolve. Young recruits grow up in the new system. They never know the old one. For them, documentation is normal. Review is standard. Justification is routine. Slowly, metrics improve. Disparities narrow. Complaints decrease. Trust rebuilds. Not completely. Never completely. But measurably. And always with Kesha's case as reference. The Langford incident. It becomes shorthand. A lesson. A warning. A reminder. 9 months after filing, the lawsuit closes. Settlement finalized. Non-disclosure clauses. Standard language. But everyone knows the number. $675,000. The city issues a statement. Without admitting liability. No one believes it. Kesha donates the money. Civil rights groups. Legal defense funds. Police accountability projects. No press tour. No victory lap. Just quiet redirection. When asked why, she says, "If this only helps me, it failed." The parking lot footage is now used in academies. Recruits watch it in silence. Instructors pause at key moments. This is where it could have ended. This is where ego intervened. This is where legality collapsed. This is where lives changed. They teach the difference between authority and legitimacy, between suspicion and prejudice, between command and communication, between escalation and leadership. And still, somewhere, every day, a similar interaction begins. A vague call, a vague description, a vague feeling, a decision. Most do not become famous. Most are not filmed. Most do not end in reform. They end in paperwork, in fines, in records, in trauma, in silence. Kesha knows that. That knowledge stays with her. Years pass. News cycles move on. Scandals replace scandals. Names fade. But some events do not disappear. They sink deeper. They become reference points. They reshape systems quietly. The Langford incident becomes one of those moments. Inside police academies, it is still shown. Not because it is sensational, because it is instructive. Recruits watch a calm woman in a parking lot. They watch an officer lose control. They watch ego overpower training. They watch authority become insecurity. They watch law turn into weapon. They watch a routine call become a federal case. Instructors pause. They ask questions. What could he have done differently? Where should he have disengaged? Why didn't he call a supervisor? How did assumptions guide his decisions? Young officers answer. Sometimes defensively, sometimes honestly, sometimes uncomfortably. Because the video forces self-reflection. It removes abstraction. It shows exactly how misconduct looks when it happens in real life. No dramatic music. No chaos. Just small decisions stacking, one after another, until collapse. For the San Diego Police Department, reform becomes permanent work. Oversight does not end with the decree. Data collection continues. Audits remain. Public reporting becomes routine. Community councils meet monthly. Bodycam compliance reaches near total. Stop and search disparities narrow. Not vanish. Narrow, which is progress. But fragile. Always fragile. Every new generation of leadership must recommit. Every budget cycle tests priorities. Every political shift threatens rollback. Reform is not an event. It is maintenance. And everyone knows what happens when maintenance stops. David Hutchins rarely speaks publicly anymore. Former colleagues say he avoids law enforcement conversations. He stopped attending reunions. He stopped wearing old department gear. He deleted social media. His identity fractured. Without the badge, he doesn't know who he is. Some nights, he replays the footage, frame by frame, looking for a moment where he could have chosen differently. There are dozens. Each one hurts. Psychologists call this moral injury. The pain of realizing you violated your own values. Not accidentally, not unknowingly, but through defensiveness, pride, fear. He lives with that. No settlement erases it. No apology repairs it. Some consequences are internal, permanent. Kesha Langford continues ruling. Her courtroom is known for precision, for fairness, for discipline. Lawyers prepare more thoroughly. Officers testify more carefully. Everyone knows shortcuts will be exposed. She mentors young judges. She tells them something she learned too late. Power feels normal when you have it. That's why it's dangerous. She never frames herself as a victim. She frames herself as a witness to something most people never see clearly, until it happens to them. Occasionally, someone recognizes her in public. At airports, bookstores, restaurants. They thank her, quietly, for standing firm, for documenting, for not letting it disappear. She thanks them back. Always. But she knows. The gratitude is not really for her. It's for possibility. The idea that accountability can exist, even when it seems unlikely. Sociologists later study the case. They write papers. They map correlations. They analyze ripple effects. They note how one documented incident accelerated reform, how visibility changed incentives, how public scrutiny forced institutional introspection. They also note something else, that for every documented case, there are hundreds that never surface. No video, no credentials, no lawyers, no settlements, just records. and scars, and silence. Kesha understands that better than anyone, because she knows what protected her. Not innocence, not cooperation, not politeness, power, knowledge, visibility, resources. Without them, the outcome could have been very different. The parking lot still exists. Same layout, same stores, same traffic. People still load groceries, still unlock cars, still check phones, still walk between vehicles. Most have no idea what happened there. No plaque, no marker, no memorial, just asphalt, paint, concrete, and memory. Invisible, unless you know. Every time a person is stopped without cause, every time someone is searched for attitude, every time compliance is confused with guilt, every time silence is demanded instead of explanation, that moment echoes from that parking lot, from that afternoon, from those cuffs, from that click. And somewhere tonight, someone is standing beside their car, hearing footsteps, hearing a voice, feeling their heart speed up, wondering what they did wrong, knowing they did nothing wrong, hoping this ends quickly, hoping it doesn't become something bigger, hoping they get to go home. Most will, some won't. And the difference is rarely about behavior. It's about perception, about assumptions, about stories told in other people's minds. Kesha once said in a private interview, "The most dangerous thing in policing isn't malice. It's certainty. Certainty that you're right. Certainty that you're justified. Certainty that authority equals truth. Certainty that questioning is disrespect. Certainty that power protects you. Because certainty makes listening impossible. And listening is where justice lives." The footage is still online. Millions have watched it. Many forgot it. Some didn't. Some saw themselves in her. Some saw themselves in him. Some saw the system. Unmasked. For 6 minutes and 38 seconds. No soundtrack. No narration. Just reality. And that is the part that lingers. Not the settlement. Not the firing. Not the reforms. Not the headlines. The knowledge that everything changed. Because one woman kept her hands visible. Kept her voice calm. Kept her rights intact. And refused to disappear quietly, in a place where disappearing is often expected.